The UI for this game is very basic. It's just clones, which is the lives in this game, and a score counter. So let's take a look at both of those. These are really the only two moving parts in terms of the UI. So we'll take a look at the game UI first. What we have on the canvas is a flow machine that's going to, on the update, run through a branch and say if isDead is true, then we're going to hide this whole UI, which is going to hide both the score and the clones. Clones equal lives in this case. Real simple, I've got score for the word score and the word clones up there. I just labeled them as the words in text. The score flow machine, this is it down here. All this does is it's going to update the application variable for score to a string and then pass that through to its own self to update. That's it. That's all that's on here. Clones is going to do something a little similar, but not quite. So, let's blow this up. And we'll take a look at the clone's text, which is going to, on the update, text.text, which is going to set itself. It's important to note that these are not TextMesh Pro text objects. They're just regular text objects. I think there's been an update to Unity since I made this game, where now by default it's going to be a TextMesh Pro. We're going to take the application variable for clones, pass that through an int to string, and then pass that string into set that text to whatever our number of clones are. And then what we want to do is, in this flow machine, we want to, on the update, run through a branch and say if our temporary score is greater than 100, that should be an equal to or greater than 100. Bit of a mess up on my part, but that's all right. So if it's greater than 100, we're going to set the scene variable for temporary score, or score temp, to itself minus 100. So we're going to deduct 100 from that score. So every 100th point, we're going to actually run through the rest of this flow machine, which is going to set clones equal to clones plus 1. The logic here is every 100 points we get another life. It's that simple. That's all this does. And so very simple UI. It's going to keep track of our score based on how many enemies we kill, and it's going to award us a life or a clone. That is the basic 2-number score and clones UI elements that we have. Now there's a few more parts. We've got game over UI elements. Now this is hidden until it's called, so I'll go ahead and unhide it now. Let's say game over. It's going to pass that score in and have a couple of buttons. You can go back to the main menu or you can quit the game. So let's analyze this one. The image is just a none sprite with the alpha set to like 50, 53. So it gives us that like faded look over it. There's no flow on the actual game over object itself, which is fine. The image is nothing. The text is just going to say game over. Score, this is the words for score. So let's take a look at that here. And then we've got the score flow machine. It's the same exact flow machine, right? It's going to take score, plug it into a string, and then set the text of self to that score variable every update. And then we've got for some reason I called this play button. Not sure why, I'm not really worried about it. But on button click, that's that event there. It's going to take us to the main menu, which is just a scene called by name. And then the quit button is on click self application.quit, which does nothing in the editor, by the way. This only operates when you export the game and run it as an application. That is the game over UI, and this executes when called. We'll go over how they're called in just a minute. We'll go ahead and kill the visibility there, and then we'll look at this level one, but level completed UI element here. So it's going to say victory. Again, the same trick image. I would be surprised if this is actually a different. Oh, it is. It's 0.65. So I didn't copy it straight over, but it's a partially dimmed background just to make it look like it's faded over. It says level complete or victory. The word score. It's gonna pass my score through to this element also, which again is the same exact flow machine, and it's gonna say level complete. Now this actually does something. Oh, you know what? It's not even here because the level 1 doesn't even have a flow machine. So that's all this does also, and this by default is turned off. So when I've learned a lot about how to do this a little more properly. Right now, the function is stored in the background. I've learned to make an empty game object that serves as the game manager to handle all of these functions, just so I know where they are. So going back to the background, so let's make this full screen, and we'll go ahead and take a look at what happens. So game over when dead. On the update, we're going to check and see constantly if isDead is ever true. If it is, we're going to show that game over object. If isDead is true, it also removes the player's ability to move based on the character controller. And so that's when it's going to show us that UI element for game over. It's just handled in the background. And again, on the update for level 1 or level completed, this update event is a coroutine passed into a branch to check and see if the level has ended. It's a scene variable, and that level end variable is set in the, I think in the main camera where the background actually scrolls. We're gonna wait 4.5 seconds, so when the background stops scrolling, 4.5 seconds later, the level 1 game object pops up, it's visible, there's another 3-second delay where level end is actually set to false, and we load the next scene based on the scene build index by adding 1 to it. So we're gonna get the active scene from the scene build index, add 1 and pass that into the build index. And let me show you where that lives in, I think it's in File. In build settings, you can see this is where we find those. This is the build index right here. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3. There's 10 scenes in the game. Because I wanted this to be a repeatable flow machine, it makes so much more sense for me to go ahead and grab that scene variable and add 1 to it. So that way I didn't have to code by name, by string name right here, what scene should load next. That's all I wanted to do. It's a very linear game, so the player can't pick what level happens next. They can only go by what's in this build index. And you can reorder this if you want to. I think you can just drag these up. So let me move level 5 above level 4. So that's all we're doing here, right? It's very simple. I'm just going to close that. And that's how we call both of those level 1 or oops, I died and I've got to restart the game. And that scene is called by that button. So very simple. Now UIs can get very complicated. If you look at what I did for my racing game, I had to control everything about the car in that UI. So you might want to check that one out also. Thanks for watching.